Hello, welcome to the Legends of Podcasting. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Star Wars The Last Jedi. I'm Liam. With me, as usual, is
Stuart,
Robert,
and Ross.
Cool. And this is our pilot episode, the first one for all you keen fans out there. But let's get this thing started.
During the 21st century, comic books conquered the world and murdered everyone's spare time. I have assembled an elite team to hunt comic book stuff down throughout media and to cover their rise to power. Unfortunately, my plan is opposed by general life obligations, meaning instead of daily, we can do this weekly, thanks to something we have sworn our allegiance to: time management. In the future, we ourselves may not be heroes, but if we succeed, we will be remembered as the Legends of Podcasting.
All right, so Star Wars Last Jedi has just come out. I haven't seen it yet, but you guys all have. What were your thoughts on it?
Initial thoughts, I've seen it twice now. First one, I was disappointed. It didn't have what I wanted to have in it, which we can discuss in a little while. Second viewing I did last night, knowing the stuff I wanted to see wasn't going to be in there, I did enjoy it for what it was a lot more, but it still has its problems, I'd say.
Robert?
I saw it last night for the first time. To be perfectly honest, I walked out the cinema not knowing what to think, and my initial reaction was it was just a generically average sci-fi movie.
Okay. And Ross, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I've seen it twice now as well. First time, again, I was the other two. It's a bit confusing. Takes a lot to process. And then the second time, I enjoyed it a lot less.
All right, cool. And for the record, is everyone here an actual Star Wars fan? Everyone's seen all the movies now?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. As a kid.
Excellent. Me too.
Literally got the shirts and everything.
Yeah, and I've seen all the movies, and I am a fan of Star Wars ones. I just haven't seen the Last Jedi yet, but I will get around to seeing it at a point. So before we go in talk about Last Jedi, let's just talk about just do a quick recap of Force Awakens, which was the lead up to it. So we had obviously the prequel trilogy. We've all got the story about Anakin becoming Darth Vader. And then the original trilogy, we've got Luke Skywalker becoming a Jedi and defeating the Empire. So Force Awakens picks up how many years later from? Is it 30 years later from the original?
Yeah, I'd say it's about.
Anyone remember?
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah.
I think it's 30 or 40 years, I believe, something like that.
Yeah.
So it picks up 30, 40 years later. And now that time's passed, it seems like, despite the fact that the Empire have been defeated, we've now got a new one that started, and we're kind of back where we were with A New Hope at the beginning, right? What are the new sides called? The New Republic, is it?
It's called
the First Order, which is meant to be the New Empire, and then the Republic, and now the Rebels.
They call themselves the Rebellion, don't they?
The Rebellion, yeah.
Rebellion. Okay, New Republic. So with that, we now know that we've got Rey, who very much has the Luke Skywalker storyline in Force Awakens, and she ends up getting Luke's lightsaber, and her story through that movie is pretty much getting that lightsaber to Luke Skywalker because she found the BB-8 droid that had his secret coordinates in it. Yeah. So that was her story in that. And we also had Finn, a stormtrooper who decided that he didn't want to be evil and wanted to be good, and he appears to be a Jedi. Certainly seems to suggest that in Force Awakens that he's going to be a Jedi at a point. And then we've got
Poe. He meets Poe at the start. Who's just a
so pilot.
Yeah, I don't know if he's top brass in the Rebellion, but he seems to be
he's a lead pilot, isn't he? I would say lead pilot, maybe.
Yeah,
he's kind of our new Han Solo.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So the rebellious, doesn't follow the rules kind of guy.
Yeah.
And who's the new Darth Vader? What's his name again?
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren. That's it. Han's son.
Yeah, Ben.
So
Han's son. Yeah.
All right. So he just wants to follow in the footsteps of Darth Vader, and he builds his own Death Star, basically.
With the new Emperor.
Snoke, the
Snoke.
the big hologram character.
Right, so he
smart.
basically wants to be Darth Vader. So coming out of Force Awakens, what were you guys expecting to see in Last Jedi?
Well, the ending as well of Force Awakens is you see Rey finally meet up with Luke, and she's just standing there handing his lightsaber. That's the end, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on the island where the first Jedi were done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, the film starts off straight off from that scene. Pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah, it does.
There's no break.
So that's what you're expecting. So hang on, before we go into it, let's just talk about what you were expecting, what you were hoping for. So what were you hoping to get from Last Jedi? What were you hoping to see?
So a lot of the main two things a lot of people were expecting that you don't get, which is one of the things I was hoping for as well, is to find out who's Rey's parents are, because there's some big thing about, obviously she's highly Force sensitive. Is she another Skywalker? Is she Obi-Wan's daughter? Is she Qui-Gon Jinn's daughter? Is she just a woman, a girl born of the Force like Anakin was? Lots of different things about that if you don't find out, and also who Snoke was as well. So the guy who's the master of Kylo Ren. Who is this guy? Where has he been?
So that's what you were expecting. Is that same for you other guys as well, or was there anything else as well you were looking for?
Well, yeah, I mean, because obviously J.J. Abrams was responsible for Force Awakens, and he's well known for his teasing his mysteries and everything else like that. And with the Lost TV show from years ago, I was kind of expecting those questions to be answered, just because the way they were posed in Force Awakens. Like, okay, it wasn't just a case of here's a question and we're not going to answer it. It was a case of here's something that might be important down the line. But they never really touched on any of it. In fact, as you'll talk about in a minute, they kind of just glance over it all.
The also thing is, like, when you end up with her meeting Luke on the island, you kind of expect some Jedi history and some maybe being trained, learning things that Luke has learnt over the 30+ years that we've not seen him. That was what I was kind of expecting.
So you're kind of expecting Luke to be like an Obi-Wan to Rey.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Or a Yoda.
Or a Yoda.
And also, in The Force Awakens, you see like when she touches the lightsaber for the first time, you see flashes of the Jedi Temple that Luke had built, and you see like loads of people dead around, and there's Kylo Ren standing there with some other people, which are meant to be the sort of clan of Ren or something like that.
Yeah.
I was hoping to see a lot more I was hoping to see that whole sequence, pretty much, of how that happened in The Last Jedi. So either Luke's telling the story of how it happened, or Kylo Ren's telling it to Rey, or someone is talking about it, and you see a flashback of the whole event. You see a little bit of it in Last Jedi, but it's not really anything more than what we saw in Force Awakens. I was hoping, only because I'm a massive Luke Skywalker fan, I have been ever since a kid, to me he's like the hero of heroes, he's the goodest of good. And what they did with him in this film, although I can understand it from like a sort of story point of view, I didn't like it, because he isn't the Luke Skywalker you can think about. But yeah, that's
all right. Well, let's get into it then. So let's talk. So Last Jedi. It's so how does the movie? Because I haven't seen it, so I need you guys to explain it to me as we're going through as well. So how did Last Jedi begin?
So I think the first major thing is sort of will get you. Is how you'll see the rest of the film, Liam, is literally, the big dramatic bit at the end of Force Awakens where Rey is giving the lightsaber to Luke Skywalker, and it's like this big moment, and you think, oh my god, that's his.
What's he going to say? What's he going to do?
What's he going to do? Yeah. That's like his father's lightsaber. It's the one he had in the New Hope. That's the one he lost at The Empire Strikes Back when he found out his dad was Darth Vader. What the hell is he going to do? And all he does is he throws it over his shoulder and walks off. He doesn't give a shit. And I was just like, what the hell?
It's exactly your reaction there, Liam. It's literally just there for jokes and a laugh.
Yeah, it's such an epic. It could have been such an epic moment. And they threw it, and they did that for a laugh.
I mean, even if he said, "Where's my hand?" Because his hand was attached to it last time he saw it.
Exactly, yeah, something like that. Well, something like
yeah.
It was so random, and I mean, so if we want to go through the whole story of The Last Jedi, but I mean like Ross can't even, but the basic premise of The Last Jedi is the Resistance, or the Rebels, the only few, there's like 800 of them left or something on this planet.
The planet from The Force Awakens that you see their rebel base?
Yeah.
The start of the film is them leaving it because they've been compromised, and the the last order on their way to eradicate them. So they're having to try and get off-world.
It was the First Order. Oh, yeah, it was, yeah.
Sorry,
yeah. So they have to all get. Sorry, they all have to get off. So you have Poe distracting them by flying up in a lonely X-wing.
And giving a your mum joke to
giving a mum to Hux, who's like the ginger guy who's sort of in control of the stormtroopers and everything else. He does a whole thing of, can I speak to Hux? And then Hux does some big old evil speech, and then Poe's like, all right, I'll hold. And he's like,
can you hear me?
Can you hear me? And he's like a whole joke thing for ages.
Yeah. It felt very much like they just put Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark in the cockpit for about 5 seconds. Which was funny. I don't dislike that bit. I think it's quite funny, and I also like the whole fight. It's basically a massive space fight because there's this even bigger ship than the Ultimate Star Destroyer that comes along, which is a
Dreadnought.
What they call it? Dreadnought. Yeah, which is an even bigger ship, of course, because they always need a bigger ship.
Yeah.
And then they basically get everyone off the planet onto the sort of 4 or 5 ships they have left. Leia's like, right, come on, let's go. And Poe's like, no, we can take down a dreadnought, let's do this. And basically loses over half the fleet on all these bombers just to get rid of this dreadnought. And he's just like, oh yeah, we did it, we're awesome. And Leia's like, no.
At what cost?
Yeah, you blew up that dreadnought, but at what cost? We've lost like over half our sort of fleet, all those lives lost. And what for? It's just like, and that's his sort of. It's quite. And I think, to be fair, out of all the characters in The Last Jedi, I think Poe's is probably one of the best development of characters because he is a hothead who just goes in. They even say in the film, he just gets in the X-wing and blows stuff up.
Yeah,
that's his thing. And he sort of.
It's demonstrated in that scene when he basically solo attacks the dreadnought in his X-wing, take out the turbo laser so that the bombers can get close enough without being destroyed. And he's just still doing it by himself while being trapped by 3 or 4 X-wings, TIE fighters. So it's quite clear that he's a hotshot pilot, but that's pretty much all he's good at. With his whole character arc in this film is about learning leadership and responsibility.
Yeah, and sometimes it's better to run away and fight another day rather than just go like guns in blazing.
To be fair, those fucking bombers that the rebels are using were absolute arse.
Yeah, Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I was going to say, the one they managed to arm the bombs on one of them, and then it gets blown up, and all the bombs fly out and blow up the rest of the bombers. Yeah. You guys heard of spacing?
Yeah. The other issue I have is with that is that the premise of those bombers is that they fall via gravity. We're in space. There's no gravity. Why do they fall?
Yeah, really true.
I mean, if they had little engines to push them down into the dreadnought, that'd be fine. But if they fall from a spaceship, they should just float. They should not go straight down onto the dreadnought.
That was super heavy metal that just doesn't believe in gravity.
I was just like, what's going on here?
Anyway, so that happens. Everyone's a big loss, and you find out there's this girl who, as Rob saying, there's one bomber left because all these other ones get blown up by each other. Should be stupid. And there's one left, and this girl who's got this sort of moon-shaped necklace on, releases all these bombs, and it blows up the dreadnought. Everything's great. The Leia and the ship's like light speed off, and it's just like, oh god. And then you've got quite a funny bit with Snoke appearing to Hux, and basically, where like Darth Vader used to be able to chokehold people, he basically makes him like headbutt the ground and like drag him along the floor, which is quite cool.
Yeah. It sounds like he broke his teeth as well because there's blood bleeding from him as well. Yeah.
But he sort of hints to them, they can't escape. We've got them on a string, and they basically you see. Also, let's continue this story and we'll do the Jedi bit because it's sort of 2 separate stories that climax at the end, I think. Yeah. But you then have, so they light sped away and they're like, oh, we're in the middle of nowhere, they're never going to find us. And within like 30 seconds, all the Star Destroyers show up and they're like, how the hell did they find us? And they've worked out that they can track them through light speed. And then you have this another little sort of space fight where Kylo Ren
and some TIE fighters.
He's about to destroy his mother. And then changes his mind, and the TIE fighters then
shoot the bridge of the cruiser that they're in. And
the whole of the command, the sort of leaders of the rebellion, including Admiral Akbar, who's like cult classic. Yeah. It's a trap. It's sucked out into space, and they all just die. Leia, who then uses the Force to drag herself back in to the sort of command center and get into an airlock,
which is an actual comedy scene. It is so stupid when you see it.
The way it's shot is so bad.
Yeah, she's basically floating in space, and you see a close up of her face, and then you kind of like see it crystallize over her skin, and then does she open her eyes? I can't remember if she opens her eyes. I think she does open her eyes. And then it pans out to a massive wide shot of her, and she just puts her hand in front of her, and she flies back towards the spaceship, back into the bridge where it's all like on fire and stuff, puts her hand on the door which is sealing from the bridge, and then they manage to get her out. When you open the door, it should suck them all out into space, surely. But somehow they managed to get her out, and she's in a coma for pretty much the rest of the film.
Yeah, till right at the end.
Princess Leia.
Yeah.
Ended up pulled out into space.
Yeah, she's out there for a good sort of 5-6 minutes. Yeah, fly back in. It's so stupid.
Yeah, I thought because obviously, Carrie Fisher is a.
Everyone's calling it the Mary Poppins moment.
So she's holding an invisible umbrella.
It took a minute for me to fully register what you were saying. That's just stupid.
Yeah, it is bad. And the thing is with me as well, like...
It gets worse, Liam, don't worry. Because then after that, the cruiser basically like fall like impulses away, because they're running out of fuel, so they can't light speed again. Because if they light speed again, the First Order is just going to find them again.
Yeah, they're
so
really...
they go, right, let's go full impulse, because we're smaller than we're slightly faster, so we can keep out of range of their laser guns. So you then have the rest of, I think that's like 20 minutes into the film. So you have the next hour and a half of the film of them being just out of reach of of about 8 Star Destroyers and then Snoke.
It's Snoke's ship and 7 Star Destroyers. I counted it on the second viewing.
Yes, and it's basically them then chasing, and they go, we've got 18 hours of fuel left, we'll just keep chasing until they run out of fuel, and then we'll just blow them up. Surely they can, like Ross said it, like when we speak offline, they could, like, one of the Star Destroyers could just light speed ahead of them, and then, like, catch them.
Because what they do is that they put all their shields at the back of the cruiser, so because they're still firing at them, but it's taking a lot, because they're quite far away, like, a lot of the impact is lost, and the shield's going to hold up for the amount of time that they're trying to escape the Snoke ship and the 7 Star Destroyers. But why can't they even call for other help, or the other Star Destroyers just light speed in front or behind, side, anything, and shoot it from range? There's no reason for them to sit there and chase them for 18 hours. It doesn't make any sense.
You say chase. It's more of a slow crawl.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. It's like if it was an action film set on Earth, and you've got a bad guy, right? When the police are chasing anybody, they go, right, we need all units, I need a helicopter, they'll call for backup. And this is the Last Order, the biggest fleet in the galaxy, and 8 people are just going to chase them for 18 hours. It is awful. It's a terrible plot. And I cannot get behind it at all. It's quite a joke.
So while that's going on, Liam,
yeah.
we can take over from Stu for a bit. Finn... Obviously, Leia's in a coma, so they hand over command to this Vice Admiral. I can't remember her name.
Holdo.
Holdo or something?
Holdo.
Yeah, Holdo. So she's now in command of the Rebel fleet of 3 ships, and she says, we've got a plan. We're just going to keep trucking away. And Poe, who's been demoted to captain as a result of the start of the film, he sort of confronts her on the bridge and says, what's going on? Leia was in charge. I'm Leia's number 1. What's our next move? And she's like, I've got a plan. You'll have to trust me. I don't listen to hotshot pilots because
she doesn't even say there's a plan. She just says believe, isn't it? Pretty much. Yeah. Believe in hope.
Believe in me. I've got to have hope. And he's like, all right. So he and Finn come up with this idea that they can the tracking device they're using is only on the lead Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
If they can get onto the Star Destroyer, they can knock it out, and then they can jump to hyperspace with the remaining fuel and avoid being blown up.
Well, the thing is, they meet Rose, who's this is the sister of the first Chinese girl that we met on the bomber, and she's got the other side of this necklace that you saw this other person holding as she detonates the bombs. And when you first meet Rose, she's crying in the engine room of the crew of the thing, and she's basically, I think she said 3 times people have tried to escape via the pods because they're cowards. And she notices Finn's trying to escape, but it's because he's got a tracker that Leia had, that Rey has got the other half of, so that she can find her way back after she's finished with Luke. So when she's bringing Luke's back, they can all meet up because they don't know where they're going to be when she left. And that's how he meets her, and then they come up with the idea of finding that there's a tracker on the main ship and they need to go and disable it without them knowing, so they can use hyperspace and they can't track it. So they go off on this journey behind this new leader, Admiral Holdo's knowledge.
Yeah, but also they can get onto the ship, but they can't get bypass the security to get to the tracker. So they have to find this one in a million hacker that the sort of, what's the name from The Force Awakens? The little lady with the glasses.
Oh, Maz.
Yeah,
the one that had Luke's lightsaber.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but she can't because she's busy shooting the crap out of something. So she goes, "Oh, you need to go to this place, which is basically like a giant planet, which is of rich people in Las Vegas, kind of thing."
Yeah.
And there's a guy there who'll be able to do it. So there's this whole subplot of Finn and Rose going to this planet to find this person, which they don't even find in the end. They with BB-8 as well. BB-8's with them. They see him. They get captured. They meet what's his name, Del Toro.
Yeah.
DJ, what's his name?
They called him DJ for short.
Who's like a in this prison with them, who's apparently also a hacker, but they don't really trust him. But he gets them out. And sort of long and short of it is they meet some kids as well when they're escaping, and they say that
they free some animals.
Free some animals which are being tortured, and then get off the planet, get back to the ship, and then they go through all this thing to try and get the tracker done, and then by the time they double crosses them anyway, they don't even do it. So there's this whole subplot which is completely pointless. They could have just, my first initial opinion would have been just make sure that Rose could be like a hacker. She could just be like a trained hacker, and they could go, her, Finn, and even Poe could go on the ship together. They can spend more time there.
Yeah, because it doesn't go anywhere. Don't waste time on it. Just get them two to go together. They meet. They try and do it. It fails. They get captured. End of. You don't need that other whole subplot.
I kind of think the whole point of that subplot was to meet those three kids, because there's a bit at the end with one of them, and that's it, which we'll talk about in a bit. So,
anyway,
Liam's probably just tearing his hair out right now.
And hold on that, because you've talked about like everyone so far, with the exception of Kylo Ren and Rey. That's two people you haven't talked about what their story is.
We'll get to them in a moment, because their stories are all intertwined. It's easier to talk about the stories as an arc rather than what's happening over the course of the film.
Because it's basically two separate films that go into playing along at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, you have obviously Finn, Rose, and this hacker that they've picked up. They get onto the Star Destroyer, and they're about to disable the tracker so that the ship can jump to light speed. And Poe's listening in at this point as well, because he's taken command of the vessel, because he's forced a mutiny on Admiral Holdo. He doesn't believe in her plan, and he's trying to buy time for them to take the tracker out so they can jump to light speed. But obviously the hacker betrays Finn and his team to the First Order, and they get captured. At which point Leia wakes up from her coma and stuns Finn, Poe, so that she can take command of the fleet again. At which point we learn that Holdo's grand plan was basically, there's a planet they're going to pass on the right-hand side of this slow-moving chase that's a former Republic base from years and years ago.
Yeah, it's really well armed apparently as well.
Really well armed, lots of stuff, even though we never see any of that. Yeah. And the plan was to basically fill all of these little transport ships with the people that are on the cruiser and cloak them and send them out to the planet away from being detected. So that when the First Order destroys the cruiser, it'll look like they've destroyed all the rebellion, and they can go off, and then the rebels can rebuild on this planet and have a new rebellion. But the hacker then betrays that plan to the First Order as well, and they find all the little transport ships and start blasting them up because they've got no shielding. Then the only person left on the cruiser is Vice Admiral Holdo.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. She decides that somebody needs to pilot the cruiser while they go away. And even though she says she's going to pilot them, but for the rest of the movie she just stares out the window. She's not actually piloting it.
Yeah.
So why does anybody need to be on it? I don't know.
In order to protect the transports that have been blown to bits by the Star Destroyer, she basically turns the cruiser into 180 and hyperspeed jumps it straight through the Star Destroyer, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's a great visual shot. It's complete silence as she just light speeds through, and it actually destroys cuts Snoke's ship and goes through all 7 Star Destroyers at the same time.
But with that, it's amazing. She took way too long to decide to do that, because they lost about 10 ships. I know there was about 30 of them flying down to the planet. Yeah. There's about 10 ships got destroyed before she went, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to die anyway. Why don't I turn the ship around and
just kamikaze.
Well, the better plan was everybody go on the board. You get a droid to do that to the ship, turn around and light speed it through and kill everybody. But yeah,
3PO didn't have much to do.
That's the point. Why don't they just use a droid?
Yeah. But that's the other thing I don't like about them using the light speed as a weapon, because it's completely made everything else in Star Wars completely idiotic. Because it's like, well, from now on, why don't we just get ships with droids in them with light speed and just go through Star Destroyers every time we come across one? You know, if it does that much damage,
that's
why
now
are they
made
not
it
going
so
to
much
weaponize
easier
it?
to destroy a Star Destroyer.
It's such a stupid decision, I think, to put that as a weapon. But yeah, that's me.
But then the remaining fleet manages to make it to the base, don't they?
Yeah.
And then the what's left of the First Order fleet, which is on Snoke's ship, which has only been half damaged by the light speed jump, sort of lands and begins a ground assault, which is very reminiscent of the Hoth assault.
Do you want to stop there and go to the Rey and Kylo story now? Because that's what sort of links in together.
That's when it sort of meets up. Yeah. So go for it, Stu.
Well, so we go way back to Luke throwing his lightsaber over his shoulder and walking off. And you find out basically he's been living on this. The island he's on is where he's got the Jedi tree in it with the original books of the Jedi, and he's basically been living there. And he went into hiding, and no one really knows why. And Rey's just there to be like, look, Leia sent me. You need to come back. You need to be Luke Skywalker and save the galaxy, basically. And he even says it. It was although this bit we just spoke about is really bad, the good bits of the film, I think, again, maybe I'm a bit biased because I'm a Luke Skywalker fan. Although I didn't like what they did with him, the bits they did with him, I think I quite like some of it. Like, he basically says, what do you want me to do with a laser sword and just take down the whole of the First Order? And he's just like, everyone's like, well, yeah, because you're Luke Skywalker, that's what you do. And he's just like, it's not going to happen like that. And you basically find out through lots of other stuff, he refuses to help her for a long time. She follows him around, and then she suddenly starts getting called to the tree that's there. And he sort of says, well, and he starts following her, and she's in there, and she's like, I've been here before in dreams. And he's like, who are you? And she's like, oh, I'm nobody. And he goes, well, you like, kind of, he sort of starts realizing you must be someone. I don't remember which order it goes now, but he basically then bumps into Chewie. He finds out that Han's dead.
No, what he does...
how does he suddenly bump into Chewie? He's on his little island.
Chewie flies... they fly the Millennium Falcon to the island, so Chewie and Rey fly.
I forgot about that, yeah.
So Chewie's already on the island.
Well, what happens is Luke is a little bit... After he's spoken to her, I think he's a little bit intrigued. So he... when you've got these porg little animal creatures, I don't know if you've seen them in the promos and stuff.
Trailers.
Yeah, stupid little things.
Chewie.
Funny,
Chewie cooks a couple of them and tries to eat them, and then you've just got them looking at him like really big-eyed, a bit like Puss in Boots from Shrek. They're looking at him like that. And
exactly.
So he doesn't eat it, and then he actually becomes friends them, and he lets them all on the Millennium Falcon, and they kind of infest it and all this stupid stuff. But Luke boards when he's cooking it up, and that scene's happening. You see Luke sneak onto the Millennium Falcon, and he kind of gets a bit of nostalgia, I think, looking around, and then he finds Han Solo's dice little chain thing that it's always hanging in the top of the cockpit. I don't know if you've ever noticed it. And he takes those. And then he's sitting there in the main hangar bit where they play that chess game and stuff, and he's kind of sitting there looking a bit down, and then all of a sudden R2's there, and he lights up, and then he's like, oh, R2, and he's like, oh, how you doing, old friend? And then
that was such a cool moment. He actually sounds, because he sounds like Mark Hamill in most of this film, but like that bit, he sounded like a young Luke Skywalker again.
It was really good. And then he basically says to R2 that you can't change my mind, I'm not going to help. And then R2 plays the original message that Princess Leia had for Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, yeah?
Which is really nice shot. It's really well done. And he says, that's a cheap shot. It's quite a nice scene. I quite enjoyed that. Cool, and then because this is at night time, and he then wakes up Rey, who's sleeping outside, and says, wake up at, I think it's 5 at dawn or something, and he goes, we'll start your training.
There'll be three lessons, and I'll show you why the Jedi need to die. So
and which is weird because then it cuts to obviously back to one of the other things with Finn and Rose and everything. Then it cuts to the next morning when she wakes up and she's inside, even though she was sleeping outside, which is a bit odd. But that's nothing. And then he starts the training of the first lesson, and they go up to this cave, and it's got this like mosaic pattern thing on the floor, which you don't quite see what that is, but it does look like one side's light and the other side's dark. I don't know if you guys saw any.
I thought it was, you see that
almost like the light side and the dark side.
That's what it looks like.
Maybe you see that one of the original books when he's talking, he's got like the symbol on like the bottom corner of the book. I thought it was that. I thought it was the
no, because the Jedi symbol is just a star, isn't it? Which is very elongated at the top. Where this looked like a person.
That's what I thought was that's what I thought was in there. Okay, maybe not. I'll have a look.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it was, but they don't give you a good look at it. I've seen some things. People think it actually looks a little bit like Snoke, but I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, no, that's just a bit random.
But then he
so he puts her on a rock.
And he sets up the first lesson, and he tells her to sit on this rock, close your eyes. And I don't know. I thought the first time I saw it, I thought it was quite funny, but the second time I thought it was a little bit irritating. They do like a little joke in between it, where he tells her to close her eyes and reach out, and obviously he means with her mind, but she puts her hand out, and he's got this like long leaf thing in his hand. And he tickles her fingers with it. She goes, "Oh, I can feel it." He goes, "That's the Force. You must be strong with it." And then he slaps her hand with it, as in, "You idiot." And it's quite a funny moment, I thought, the first time. But I don't know. It was kind of weird. Because it's odd, because like in Force Awakens, you can see she's quite powerful, and she instantly learns, to when Kylo Ren is trying to read her mind, she can reject it, and he can't read it, and then she's able to. The stormtrooper that's Daniel Craig, she gets him to uncuff her and let her out and drop her gun. So she knows how to use the Force. We've seen that. But it was a bit stupid that she reached out, because she obviously knows what to do. But it was more of another in-joke bit inside a nice scene. So she starts feeling the Force, and they kind of show you, I think for the first time, a visual representation of like, she goes, "I see life," and you see like...
It's like balance, isn't it?
Yeah, you see blood glowing,
and
then she goes death, and you see skeletons in the floor, and then she says light, and then all of a sudden she says something else, and then it's like overlooking this rocky, like flat surface over the sea, and then there's this big dark hole, which is obviously meant to represent the dark side, and she's like, "Oh, it's calling to me," and then Luke's trying to tell her to like concentrate, get away from it, but she just keeps going towards it, and then he's like screaming at her, but you can't hear him because she's just been sucked into this Force. And then I can't remember. Oh yeah, water comes out. I don't know what that means, but like water hits her in the face. All the rocks around her have all cracked, and he's like a little bit scared of her, saying, "You went straight to the darkness," and then just sort of runs off. Like. I don't know if he's like... Oh,
he did that line for the trailer, doesn't he? He goes, "I've only seen this raw power once before in Ben Solo.
Yeah.
It didn't scare me then, it does now." And he sort of walks off, and she's just like...
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I can't remember, there's a part... I don't know if it's happened before that or after that, but... Oh no, it's after she wakes up, isn't it? She wakes up, and then all of a sudden she has this link to Kylo Ren. So she'll be on the right-hand side of the screen looking left, and then it will cut to Kylo being on the left side of the screen looking right. And it will kind of keep changing, and it's like they can see each other. And Kylo Ren, they kind of run around corridors a bit, and like she runs outside, and they can still see each other. And he says to her, "Can you see my surroundings? Because I can't see your surroundings. I can just see you." And then there's this link, and then
I heard it.
Sorry,
I heard it described in a review as Force time.
Force time. Okay.
Force time, like it.
Yes. So throughout the rest of the movie, they kind of talk to each other, and
it's interesting because then it's kind of like in the original trilogy, like they can sense each other, like Darth Vader knows when Luke's nearby.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this is trying to be like a visual representation of that, or if they're suggesting that Rey's Force powers, so to speak, are stronger than other them in the past, which is why now you can see this experience and she can see his surroundings, but he can only see her.
Yeah.
But she never answers him when he says, "Can you see my surroundings?" She never actually answers him because she basically. It starts off the first time they do it. The last time she saw is when she fought him on the planet and he killed Han Solo. So she's like, "You're a monster, and I don't want to do." But just sort of we glazed over a little bit because I know we were talking about the Iron Man, but with regards to Kylo Ren, which sort of makes sense why they're talking to each other, is he goes to see Snoke, and Snoke wakes with his Kylo Ren mask on, and Snoke basically says, "Take that ridiculous mask off. You're no Vader. You're a disappointment." Blah blah blah. So you've got Kylo Ren going through this whole thing of, I'm the dark side, but Snoke's disappointed in me about this. When he killed Han Solo, like basically says that you killing Han Solo split your soul in two, and it made you so weak that even a girl who's never carried a lightsaber before could beat you. So you need to basically step up if you want to be my apprentice still. So he's in turmoil about what to do. Rey's obviously trying to get Luke Skywalker to help her, but Luke doesn't want to help her. So these two then start talking, and they get like a connection of like, we both have people who want to help us. We need help, and these people we think should help us aren't. Maybe we should help each other. And they start, and they say there's about 4 or 5 moments where they like meet up, not because they want to. They just end up meeting up. Till the end, they actually like meet up because they kind of want to.
The main conversation they have throughout all 4 or 5 of them is what actually happened to Luke's academy when Kylo Ren sort of destroyed it. And
which is quite cool.
Because I think the first one he asks her, "Did he tell you what happened?" And she says, "Yeah," and then he's like, "No, he didn't," kind of thing. And then she then confronts him about what happened when he was Luke's apprentice, and you see this cutscene of Ben's kind of like lying because he's just woken up, and Luke is behind him, and you just see Luke go, "No!" and then the whole building sort of, you see Ben's hand raise up, and then the whole building collapses on both of them, and then that's all that you see the first time, and then they show.
Yeah, there's going to be that Ben takes. He said takes half a dozen students with him and kills the rest, and then Luke wakes up, pulls himself out of the rubble. And everything's on fire, and there's all these dead bodies on the floor. Which I like. Sounds morbid, but I would like to see what actually he did rather than just seeing. But
because you know the bit where when Maz's castle, when Rey touches the lightsaber, and you see that clip of a hooded figure with a robotic hand touch R2. That's the scene. That's the bit that they're talking about. And
then she goes back to Kylo about this. He says, "No, that's not really what happened." And he says he woke up to find Luke standing over him with a lightsaber drawn.
Yeah, and he looks quite evil, doesn't he, and dark when they show him. I thought he's standing there with his green lightsaber from Return of the Jedi as well.
Because it's from his point of view, isn't it? It's from Kylo Ren's or Ben Solo's point of view. He sees Luke standing over him with a lightsaber, so we'd assume that he's got an angry face, and he thinks he's basically going to kill him. So he gets a lightsaber to protect himself and pulls the building down. So the same sort of thing happens. And then Rey thinks, "Oh God!" So like basically, Luke creates Kylo Ren in a way, and that's why he's gone into hiding. But then sort of find out by the end of it, Luke was basically standing over him, read like sort of force sensed him and saw his future and saw how dark and evil Ben Solo's going to be. And for a second, he draws his lightsaber and he's going to kill him. But then within a split second of doing that, he goes, "No, I can't do that." But that's when Ben wakes up and sees the lightsaber drawn over him and automatically assumes he's gonna kill me.
Yeah. So he pulls his own lightsaber off the table, defends himself.
Quite a clever thing, seeing the same story told like three times from two different people's point of view.
What I got from that was it was heavily implied from that's what sent Luke into exile, because he's ashamed of his actions and he can't teach properly. That he failed his student in a moment of weakness because he saw a guy turn to the dark side and didn't think he could stop it rather than trying to help him. And that's why he's sort of cut himself off from the outside world, if he no longer feels that he's responsible for Kylo Ren and it's his own fault.
Yeah, which I agree with the way that they said it is 100% what he would probably do. But for me, that is nothing like Luke Skywalker. Like you take the previous 3 movies where he lost his parents. He then found Obi-Wan. He then helped destroy the first Death Star. He then found out his father was Darth Vader. And then in Return of the Jedi, everybody told him he was wrong, but he believed that there was a little bit of good and light in his father still, and he can save him. And everyone's telling him, "No, you're an idiot. You can't do that. He's the most darkest, evilest person in the world. You're not going to be able to turn Vader back to the light." And then at the end of the movie, he does, and he was 100% right, and he believed in himself, and he did it. And then in this movie, the next time we see him, he sees a little bit of darkness in his own nephew, and he's willing to kill him. I know it's only for a second, but he's still willing to do that. That is not the Luke Skywalker that we have been told up until that point. You can blatantly tell that this is written by somebody else who just maybe doesn't even like the character or just wants to do something different to be different, and that is not Luke Skywalker. And that was my main issue with Luke, that one scene.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Anyway, they have that revelation, and then Rey and Kylo have one more Force time conversation where they touch hands.
Yeah.
And by touching each other's hands, they can see each other's future. And Rey sees that Ben is doubting, his dark side, and she thinks she can turn into the light. And she basically then takes off with the Falcon and Chewie, leaving Luke behind to go and rescue Ben.
Well, the other thing is, when they're touching hands in the hut, all of a sudden, like, Luke's like, "What's that?" And he comes in, and he can see both of them sitting there in front, like cross-legged, touching hands in front of this fire. And he goes, "No!" And he goes to blast them or something, doesn't he? But it backfires because I think of their power together is so strong. It backfired on him and destroyed the hut that they were in. And then Luke, she actually, they fight, don't they? She gets her staff. He rips a pole off of something, doesn't he? And
antenna or something.
Yeah, they then fight for this little bit, and then she then drops her staff, grabs Force pulls the lightsaber, and they have this fight. And she's telling him, "Is it true what you did to Han Solo?" And then that's when she believes that she can bring Han Solo back to the light, and then she gets
Ben Solo back.
Yeah, she can then she gets in the Millennium Falcon with Chewie, and she's going to go to Kylo Ren and confront him and see if she can turn him back.
Yeah, and then the coolest bit in the film happens.
Yeah.
Luke goes to the tree, and he's like so angry with himself. He goes to the tree and he's going to burn it. And then you see this figure in the foreground, and it's Yoda, Ghost Yoda, appears to him.
The
and
puppet
Ghost Yoda as well.
Yeah.
His puppet,
for real?
strikes back Yoda, and he's just like young Skywalker, and like.
He's like, I miss you, young Skywalker. He even calls him young Skywalker. It's brilliant.
And then Luke basically says, I can't burn this tree down. So you just see Yoda close his eyes and move his finger, and he summons a bolt of lightning that destroys the tree.
Which is cool.
A Force Ghost can do that, which is really cool.
I thought only Sith could control lightning for a start.
But
the second thing is, he's a ghost, and he can destroy that. Why aren't all the Jedi ghosts coming out and helping if they can do stuff in the real world?
It's a good point. You've got like thousands and thousands of Jedis. Go back to the...
If he can manipulate the real world,
one of the original trilogy,
why are they
got
not
that big arena full of Jedis.
Yeah.
Anyway, and they basically have a talk, which is an amazing.
It's a great moment, yeah.
Basically saying Yoda's just like failure is a master's grace lesson, and we're here for our students to outgrow us. And he says like, I miss you, Luke. Yeah. You're always fun and stuff. And they sort of just watch the tree burn together, which is it was like so unexpected. Yeah. Like someone in the UK.
Yoda says, "I miss you, Luke. You were so much fun and stuff."
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
it's literally a quote from the film.
Yeah. I miss you.
I'm ad-libbing a little bit. I'm ruining it for people.
Yeah.
You know, well, he says like he's like, oh, the books. He goes, read them, have you? Page turn as they were not.
Yeah. And the other thing as well is he says, but what about the Jedi text? And then he says, and then he says, Rey has everything that she needs, right? So she doesn't need to read those books. But you find out at the very end of the film, Finn opens up this drawer in the Millennium Falcon and finds this blanket to put over Rose, and when he opens the drawer, all the Jedi texts are in there. She took them from the tree. And I don't know if Yoda knows that, and that's why he said it, or it was just a coincidence. But yeah, it's quite interesting. But the other thing as well, he says that you failed Han Solo, but you can't fail Rey, doesn't he? He says we cannot fail her.
Ben Solo. I'm saying Han, Ben Solo, yeah.
Did I say Han again?
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, you've said it a few times, but we know you mean Ben.
You fail Ben Solo, but you can't fail Rey. So it's like, okay. And then so we're sort of running a little bit short, so we'll just sort of skip quickly. So Rey basically goes to the ship, meets up with Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren takes her to Snoke, and Snoke basically starts torturing her to try and find out where Skywalker is. And there's a few moments of her trying to grab the lightsaber and take him down. She just beats him. She grabs Kylo Ren's lightsaber at one point, which is quite cool. So she's holding the red one, trying to take him down. Doesn't work. And then basically after a little bit of that, Snoke forces her onto her knees in front of Kylo Ren, and she goes to him. Now, my friend. Yeah, now my apprentice, take out your weapon. No, like strike her down, and he goes, and she's like, Ben, don't do this. Like, you're a good person, and he's like, and Snoke's like,
you
I can
skipped
see
over something there. You skipped over something.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry, and so Rey's lightsaber's next to Snoke on his chair.
No, it's something else. When he first when Kylo Ren takes her to Snoke, and then she's like, oh no, he says to her, oh, you believe you can turn him, and you find out that the reason why they were linking together was Snoke was linking them together.
Oh yeah, sorry.
He was doing it to manipulate him.
Later on, they do it again anyway.
Yeah,
without him.
I think maybe it shows you that they are maybe linked, or there is something else between them afterwards that they do it. But he says that he linked him because he believed that Kylo Ren was. He said to Kylo that he told him that the more powerful you could become in the dark side, the more powerful you become in the light side as well, and you will be conflicted.
Yeah, someone will raise up. Yeah, someone will raise from the light and be as powerful.
So he uses his weakness to link with Rey so that she comes willingly because she thinks she can save him, and then so he nicks her lightsaber, puts it on his chair next to him. She tries to grab it, and as it goes towards her, he moves it. It goes all the way around her and it kicks her on the back of the head, and then it lands back down beside him, which is quite cool. And then it goes to where he puts her on her knees, and then he goes to strike her.
Yes, and he's basically describing it. He's like, I can see everything in Kylo's mind. He sees his enemy. He takes his weapon. He turns
because the weapon's upside down in his hand.
As he's doing this behind his back, Kylo Ren's got his fingers, and he's basically turning the lightsaber towards Snoke. Rey's
lightsaber next to him, so he's turning it in his hand, his lightsaber, as well as turning the lightsaber next to Snoke. So Snoke's seeing that he's turning the lightsaber, but he's actually turning both. And then he goes, "You're going to strike your enemy down."
Strikes you down, and basically turns the lightsaber on, and it goes right through Snoke. And then he pulls it, and then Rey catches it, and Snoke basically splits in half. And this is amazing music comes on, and you're like, oh my god, Kylo Ren's turned good. And then they basically go. He has these sort of red guard around him. There's about 7 or 8.
The Emperor's guard. Yeah,
the Emperor's guards. And so then Rey and Kylo, or now Ben, because he's good, go back to back, lightsabers drawn, and then they have this pretty cool, awesome fight. Except for the lack of force powers used, it's all very much lightsaber against weird weapons that've got sort of lightsaber bits in them. There's no force push or anything, but this is great. But pretty cool fight scene. Everything's really cool. Everything's done. And then at the end, they sort of there's this great moment where she throws her lightsaber to Ben, and then because he's been strangled, he just lets it off for a second into the guy's face. And
turns it on and off really quick. It just pierces
really cool. And then she's like, "Oh, quick, we can stop the because this is where the ships are being destroyed." She's like, "Quick, like tell them to stop. You're the leader now. Tell them to stop." And he's just like, "Just let the past die." Let the rebellion die. Yeah. Skywalker, Snoke, and then everything.
And then he raises his hand out and says, "Join me." Yeah, exactly like Darth Vader did. It's quite good.
Yeah, join me in my new empire. And she's just like, "Don't do this." And he's literally his whole plan was to get rid of Snoke so he can rule the galaxy.
Yeah. So his story arc throughout this new trilogy is that he's on a journey to become like Darth Vader or better than Darth Vader.
Yeah. Well, pretty much is.
Or the Empire, even.
Exactly. Sorry. And it was a very good double bluff because when he killed Snoke, I was just like, because that was a rumor going around for the 2 years as well that he's gonna turn good and they're gonna work together, or even Rey's gonna turn evil and he's gonna turn good, kind of thing. And I thought they actually did it at one point. I was like, oh my god, that's what they actually done. And then obviously it's the twist again of he just did all that so that he can now rule. And there's basically this massive moment then where he puts her hand out, and that's when you find out. He goes, "I know who your parents are, and you've known all along as well. They were just junkers who sold you for cash." But which is kind of this massive. Oh, I thought she was something really special, but apparently not. It's kind of like a throwaway thing. It's kind of disappointing. And then she goes out to grab his hand, and then tries to grab the lightsaber because Ben's holding Luke's lightsaber, and then they have this big thing of it just floating between them, and they're both trying to grab it, and it just floats between them. This big old floating thing happens for ages, and then it splits.
That's when Holdo does the light speed through the ship, and like they all get blasted away, and the lightsaber gets cut in half.
Okay.
And then you wake up.
Then
it wakes up to Kylo Ren's on the floor. Dead. It looks like he's like knocked out, and then you've got General Hux is standing over him, and then he's like looking at a cut in half Snoke.
Yeah.
And then he like brings his coat back and he's going to grab his blaster like he's going to kill Kylo. And then Kylo sort of wakes up and he's like, what happened? And he's like, oh, Rey killed Snoke. And then he's like, right, get your troops. We're going to follow them down to that planet. Crait, it's called. And then he goes, what do you mean? What, you're giving me orders? And then he goes, our supreme leader is dead. And then Kylo Ren just turns around and force chokes him. And then he's like, yeah, our supreme leader is dead, as in I'm the leader. And they're like, right, okay. And then it cuts to them in the base, because it's weird. It's a very Hoth-like planet. It's all snowy. And then there's this big rock face, and there's a base inside it with this big, massive door that is open about, 20 feet up from the floor. And it's just got Leia looking out, which is weird because they're all in the base, but they don't close the door, which I thought was very odd. And then all of a sudden you see this TIE fighter. Well, I think it's Kylo Ren's ship, the one that looks a bit like Darth Vader's, like the triangle-looking thing, but it's not quite the same shape. Comes flying in, and then she's like, right, close the doors. And it's like, and it just makes it in as the doors are closing. And it's actually Finn and Rose and BB-8 coming back. So it's like they only left it open to let them in. But it's
exactly.
That they did it anyway. That was
convenient whole thing there. But so basically, then the final showdown is going to happen. You have them in like trenches with these really crappy ships, and then you have the First Order. They've got about like 80 ATs or something like that, and so some other stuff like slowly walking up, and then they've got a minute. They're like, oh no, nothing's ever going to break through this massive gate thing we've got, and then they find out they've got a miniature Death Star technology battering ram gun. Conveniently.
They're charging up, yeah.
They're charging up conveniently. So then they have to go
Star
and
gun.
Yeah, exactly. It's this big round thing which basically has to take time to power up,
like
and basically make a hole in the big door that's impenetrable kind of thing. So and the Rebellian's like, right, Leia's like, right, put out my codes to everyone. Someone will come and help us. So we just need to buy
they've got quote unquote allies in the Outer Rim that might help them.
We've got allies that help us.
So all they're saying is we have to defend this base and we have to wait until somebody comes and rescues us, is the end of the film. So they all get in because you find out that the planet is it's kind of a salt planet, and Snow's land on it. It's red salt, and they've got these speedsters that they find, old wreckage things that they go out and they're going to go head off and sort of slow down and
destroy this.
Try and destroy
this miniature Death Star thing.
Yeah, and so they're all going along like that, and they realise they're all getting, because they've got TIE fighters as well, the First Order, and they're all trying to get trying to attack everything, and then Poe has a bit of a development, doesn't he, where he realises that no, we're all going to get killed off here. We're all getting picked off one by one, like they did at the very start with the bombers. So he's like, right, let's all fall back. We can't do this. Let's all get back. And Finn is like, no, we can do this. We can do this. And he goes.
You missed a slight bit out there, with the Millennium Falcon flying in. So there's all the TIE fighters coming down, taking down these ski ships that are on the ground, and then you suddenly see this one shot that destroys 3 TIE fighters, and the Millennium Falcon flies past, and Kylo Ren's like, blow that heap of junk out of the sky. And then, about 20 TIE fighters follow the Millennium Falcon away.
All the TIE fighters.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah, there's about 20 or so of them.
Yeah. And Rey's on the guns.
Oh, they hate that ship. Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's very, very cool. Rey's on the ship because she escaped from Kylo and got back on the Falcon somehow. So she's shooting the gun. So yeah, the TIE fighters off. Then, carry on a bit with Finn's flying towards the...
Yeah, Finn they all decide to turn back. And Finn's like, no, I can't let them win. And he sort of decides to go, because the cannon's literally charging up, and the only weak spot is he says down the throat. And he then decides he was going to sacrifice himself and just charge the ship straight down. And then you find out that Rose, she basically turns around, catches him up, knocks him out of the way, and saves him.
Pretty impossible.
Yeah, because
he was going full speed.
Yeah, he's going full speed that way. She's going backwards. You even see her look over her shoulder, and there's a big panning shot where they're a good sort of maybe a mile away from each other, and then all of a sudden she's managed to catch him up and knock him out of the way of the cannon, which is very odd. But then they have this little moment where the cannon goes off, it hits the door, and it blows a massive hole in it so that they can now get in. and the wreckage of both Finn and Rose's ship. She's like kind of still in the ship while Finn grabs her, tries to get her out of it, and then they had this moment where he says, "What the hell are you doing? You know, I could have saved us." And she says, "Yeah, but I saved you." And then she says, "That's how we're going to beat them, by saving what we love rather than destroying them."
Destroying what we hate.
Destroying what we hate.
Something like that.
Yeah, and then she kisses him as the explosion goes off on the door, and then she like passes out, and then they're all like. Then it cuts to, I think it's Leia in the room, isn't it? With all the sort of top
control room, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh God, nobody's coming. You know, what are we gonna do?" And then all of a sudden, this shadow of Luke Skywalker walks in, and he hands her the golden dice chain thing that he took from Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, they have also like another highlight of the film. I don't know if it because obviously Carrie Fisher didn't die when they were filming this, but the bit for me when like Luke and Leia were talking, it was very much like Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher like having a last moment together. It was like a beautiful like chat that they have about. He like apologizes about Ben, and she says, I can't save him. I'm here to face him. I'm not going to try and save him though. And she's like, I accept that he's gone. He's no turning back, kind of thing.
My son died a long time ago.
Gives her the gold dice, and he says something like, "No one's ever truly gone." So that's kind of
Kisses her on the forehead and then walks out.
Yeah, this is
And he walks past C-3PO at the time as he's walking out, and then like C-3PO's got like a bit startled that he's seeing Luke again, and Luke just winks at him and walks out, which is quite a cool little moment.
Yeah, that was and he walks out of this big explosion in the hole in the door.
Yeah. Everybody who survived is looking at him, and he's just slowly walking out into the because I think it's becoming a bit dusk, isn't it? The sun's coming down, and he's just walking through this explosion with a little bit of fire.
Very Western style.
Yeah, and then all you can see is a big horizon line of. They're called AT-M6s, which are the new AT-ATs.
Oh, I love that as a wallpaper, Ross. If you ever find that, that's always a beautiful shot.
So he's just standing there on the ground, and he's just a big line of AT-ATs. He's got Kylo Ren's ship is floating up in the air, and he's just looking at it. And it sits there for a good minute, and it looks really good. And then Kylo Ren just shouts, "I want all cannons firing on that man!" And literally, they all just light up. It's quite funny because when the first one shoots, it hits the ground of where his feet are, and because it's red salt,
it looks like
it's an explosion, and it looks like he just blows up and blood everywhere, but it's actually salt.
I thought that as well.
And I was like, "Whoa, oh shit!" And they literally pound him of laser bullets for a good 2 minutes, and then General Hux just turns to Kylo and says, "Did you get him?" And then he'll just stop firing, and then the dust clears, and Luke is just standing there.
And is that? Yeah, but Luke does this amazing. It's just he walks out. They're all like, "Yeah, we got him." The dust clears. Luke walks forward, looks directly at Kylo Ren, and just brushes a couple of flecks of dust off his shoulder.
Yeah,
it's sort of like a come on, bring it.
So Kylo then Kylo then decides to go and face him, and nobody do anything until he's given a command. So he goes down.
Yeah, and then they're sort of standing opposite each other for a while, and then you pose like, wait a minute, he's
doing this for a reason. Why is he doing this?
Yeah, he's doing this for a reason. He's not going to just destroy them all. He's doing it so we can escape. So, and I think that there's like a motto he says, which I think is going to be the thing of the. So like we can be the spark that lights the fire of hope or something.
Yeah.
It's not Luke that's going to do it. It's us.
Yeah.
We need to get out of here while he's distracting the whole of the First Order. So they managed to find a way out the back because these crystal wolf things. Like,
well, the thing is, when they first got there and they were like, "We're locked in. We can't go anywhere." BB-8 did a scan of the facility, and he said, "There's no other way out apart from this big main door." And then they come in at that time and go, "Oh well, there could be some non-man-made entrance." And they were like, "Oh okay." Oh, and they were like, "Yeah, but how did Luke get in?" And they were like, "Oh okay." And at the time when you first see the planet, there's these like little ice white wolf kind of creatures, wolf kind of fox creatures that are roaming around.
Yeah, like diamond crystal sort of things.
And they all go into the same hangar as they do when they all go in. And then they turn around and there's none there. And they're like, "Well, where have they gone?" And then they see one in the far distance. And Poe goes, "Well, follow me." And then they all look at Leia. And she's like, "Why are you looking at me? Follow him." Which is quite funny.
Yeah.
So they all follow
like
these.
Command.
Yeah, they follow these creatures down all these tunnels. And then they get to the end, and you find out that they've all escaped, but it's a really small hole that they've all squeezed through that no human would be able to get through.
It's like a landslide, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, great, we're trapped in here." And at the same time, this is when Luke and Kylo are fighting outside, and it's good because I thought they were going to go the way of A New Hope with Obi-Wan and Vader, you know, when they first fought. And he says, you know, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than ever. And he cuts him, and then he just disappears. But they didn't do that. And I can't remember the wording they said.
Yeah, if you watch the fight closely, you'll see that Luke never actually makes lightsaber contact with Kylo. He just dodges.
Yeah, he's just dodging every attack he does. And also, Kylo, they do a shot of Kylo's feet when he's dancing on the snow. He's rubbing the snow away, and you're seeing the red salt underneath.
Yeah.
And they do the same thing to Luke. And he's not doing that. And when you first watch it, you don't understand fully what's going on, I don't think. Because when you first see Luke as well, for the rest of the film, he's like really old. He looks quite old. He's got grey hair. It's really long. His beard's all shaggy. But then when you see him now, he's got like a slicker haircut. His beard's all dark. His hair's all dark.
Luke haircut, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, brown
and then
beard.
he's also got his original, Anakin's original blue lightsaber that we just saw got split in half when Kylo Ren and Rey were fighting, and he's got that one, and you're like, wait a minute, that just got destroyed. How has he got that? And then they're fighting everything, and then there's this moment where Kylo says, what does he say?
Because Luke says, if you strike me down in anger, I'll always be with you.
Yeah. So he then charges at him and cuts him in half, and it kind of cuts the shot, doesn't it, as it cuts him? And you're like, oh god, he just
hang on. Kylo Ren cuts Luke in half.
Yeah, well that's what it looks like.
What it looks like.
And then it cuts back, and Luke's just standing there. He's absolutely fine, and you're like, wait a minute. So then Kylo gets his lightsaber and stretches it out in front of him, and like pokes him, and the lightsaber just goes straight through him. And then it cuts back to Luke on the island, and he's on the same rock that Rey was first trained on, and he's floating there with his eyes closed, and he's in full concentration. He's doing a force projection of himself across the galaxy, and he's not actually there. And then he just says to him, what does he say right at the end?
See you around, kid.
Yeah, see you around, kid, and then fades away. And then you just see from the back shot a big sunset of him sitting on it, floating in front of this log, and then he just sort of collapses and falls backwards on this rock. And then it cuts back to Kylo realizing, shit, that was a distraction. Everyone get inside the cave, and at this time, Chewie and Rey in the Millennium Falcon are circling, and they find that those creatures escaping, and they found the hole, and she's on the other side of the mountain with the hole where the rebels are, and she just looks at it and goes, rocks. And then the next shot, she's lifting them all up.
We totally missed a bit of, like, at the beginning where she first meets Luke. Luke's like, well, what do you think the Force is? And she's like, it's a Force that Jedi have that means you can control people and lift rocks.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And he goes like, everything you just said in that sentence is wrong.
Yeah.
And then Kylo Ren, before the fight with Luke, says like I'm going to destroy the rebellion, and I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill the last Jedi, which is you. And again, he says the same thing. He goes, everything you've just said in that sentence is wrong.
Yeah.
Resistance are going to escape. They're going to come back stronger than ever. And I am not the last Jedi.
Yeah,
and then
it cuts to her lifting all the rocks. And then,
which is just epic.
Yeah, they all then get in the Millennium Falcon, fly off. What happened? Well, I can't remember what the Last Order do. What do they do?
There's that amazing. It's one of the best scenes in the film. There's one of the best scenes in the film you've missed, which is just after Luke's projection fades out of in front of Kylo, and you cut back to him being on the island where he's meditating, and then he collapses of exhaustion, and then eventually fades out and becomes a Force ghost, like Obi-Wan did. He just disappears.
Yeah.
But before that, he's sitting exhausted on the rock, looking out over the sunset, and the John Williams theme plays up again, like he did when he's looking out over the two suns in A New Hope.
New Hope.
Tatooine,
such a perfect mirror of his character, because it's the same. It's basically the same scene. But it's an old haggard Luke looking out over two suns setting, and then he just fades out.
That was like the start of his journey, and this was the end of his journey.
So hold on. After Luke does his force projection and he collapses on the rock, he then just disappears like Obi-Wan does.
He collapses on the rock, and then he gets up, sits on it, looks into the sunset and sees the two suns, and then he just fades away. His robe falls down, and then it just floats away in the wind.
Which again, even though it's amazing, right? This is when I first watched it. Second time wasn't so bad. I can deal with it. But the whole of the first time I was watching this film, I was like, please don't kill him off. Please don't kill him off. Please don't kill him off. And I was like, okay.
And there were so many moments leading up to that they looked like they killed him. And they're like, oh, he's not dead.
Yeah. There's two things. Either he's sitting at the rock at the end and he doesn't die. He's just there on the island. He's helped him. He's content.
He did enough.
He could come back for the next film. Brilliant. Or like, what I would have done personally is you see earlier on in the film, you see, I think Rey looks down into the ocean. You got the Luke's X-wing on the island.
Yeah.
How I would have, like, it's just me as an idea. How I would have written it is I would have had Luke actually there at the end. And when the Millennium Falcon flies off with those 20 TIE fighters, I would have had Luke fly down in his X-Wing, destroy some of those TIE fighters, and then fight with Kylo Ren. He would have been there. They could have actually touched lightsabers, because obviously he doesn't, because he's a projection. Had one of the greatest Jedi lightsaber fights ever, and then let Kylo Ren strike him down in anger, like Obi-Wan, and he disappears that way. Is how I would have kind of liked it to happen. If you're going to kill him off, let him die like that. Yeah. But that's just my personal opinion. I would have liked to see that.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if you actually take everything that Luke's done, he didn't do anything in that movie, which is really disappointing.
Yeah,
exactly. So cutting just to round out the movie, then obviously Luke fades out and dies on the island, and then Kylo gets pissed off because he's been tricked. But by this time, all the rebellion's gotten onto the Millennium Falcon, and hyperspace jumps out of it, so they no idea where he's gone. And they're on the way to the Outer Rim, where Leia's allies are. And Leia and Rey both feel Luke die, and they have a bit of a conversation about that. And that's when Finn finds the blanket for Rose and finds that Rey's got the books she's taken from the island. Yeah. Continue her Jedi training.
Poe and Rey meet for the first time.
Yeah, Poe and Rey meet for the first time, a bit of a comical handshake thing. And then they're just talking about what the future's going to be. And then the last scene of the film is basically cutting back to the weird casino planet that was where they're trying to find the code breaker that Finn and Rose went. And there's just a voiceover about how, I think is it Poe speaking again, about how they're going to be the fire that lights the spark of the rebellion. There's always going to be hope in the galaxy. And then one of the kids who we met earlier in the that little sequence,
like 8 years old or something.
8 years old is basically playing with a bunch of toys and pretending it's Luke Skywalker. And then their master comes in and chases them out of the house, and he looks up at the stars, reaches out, force grabs a broom, and starts sweeping up the pavement. And then it's just like okay, there's hope out there in the galaxy kind of thing. And then that's where they're filming.
There's more than just Rey as a Jedi as well. Yeah, so it's that's sort of how it finishes. So it's quite the ending is okay, but it leaves it wide open for the next film, because I have no idea what the next film. Because apparently the rumors were it's going to be very much Leia based. Obviously, it can't be now. So assuming it's going to be her funeral, she's going to die between the movies. In the continuity.
Well, no. Then I'm pretty sure they said in an interview after the actress died that they're not going to kill her off. Like, her character is still going to exist. She's just not going to be appearing in the movies. Right. But they're not going to kill her character.
So anyway, that's pretty much the whole of the Last Jedi for you, Liam. What do you think?
It sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems pretty clear to me that with this new trilogy, the whole point behind it from the get-go is they're trying to, kind of reignite the Star Wars franchise and get it to continue without people caring about the fact that whether or not it has the original characters in it. So they did Force Awakens, introducing a new cast, but bringing in the surviving members of the original, but they're slowly killing them all off and getting rid of them. But the audience isn't going to be that annoyed by it because of the fact that in the process you've been introduced to these new characters that now you like.
Yeah, I feel like they should have gone, right, we'll either do it completely new, not have the old characters in it, because then people won't care because they're like, oh, well, they're not in it. But if you have brought them in it and not used them, why bring them in them at all? You're taking these iconic characters and not using them to their full potential. And I think that's why a lot of people are getting upset.
Well, I think with Luke Skywalker, is that if they had brought him in, and in this movie they made him amazing, and then killed him at the end, with the next one, people would be like, well, now Luke's not in it, it's not as good. You know, but if you had Luke be underwhelming in this one, but have other characters like Rey be more exciting, then people would be like, well, Rey's better than Luke.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they're doing.
It's got the same problem I have with Star Trek Discovery, in that it's got a load of people in to write a new chapter in the universe, but they don't care about the lore or the the original stuff.
Yeah.
They're just trying to write good ideas. I mean, Rain Johnson, the director, who
Ryan
spent
Johnson,
most of his time spent most of his time talking about how he was going to subvert expectations, and then all we get throughout the film is like him going, "Here's Luke," and he's throwing a lightsaber away, and here's this happening, and it didn't really stand out that well for me.
No.
If you want to introduce new characters and get rid of the old ones, there's better ways of going about it, especially with a franchise that is Star Wars.
There's amazing moments in it, but it's not a good film, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I explain it to people as a great sci-fi action film, a really bad Star Wars film.
Makes sense.
I'll go with that.
Okay, so all in all, you guys
disappointed.
Like it,
if I had to sum it up in
like,
one word, it'd be disappointed.
Yeah, disappointed is a good one. I say it's better the second time. It's not going to be one that I'm going to boycott. Like, there's a big petition at the moment that people want to get it out of the law and pretend it didn't ever happen, which is just stupid. It's obviously
just stupid. It's obviously not.
You can't make it not happen. I think it'll be interesting to see. It's a bit like, let's not go too much. Rob could get on this. It's going to be too much in it. It's a bit like Batman v Superman with Justice League, as in Justice League wouldn't be what it was without BVS. So I'm kind of hoping that the next one's going to be amazing. So this one would be like the events of this one had to happen for the next one to be amazing.
Yeah, because I kind of hope like the race parents thing's a double bluff. But Kylo said that.
I think it's absolutely a double bluff. Because one of the things, there's got to be some reason why the pair of them are connected. It's possible that they are just mirroring the original Luke and Leia connection, going like, oh, you guys are actually brother and sister. But they had to hide away. They had to give away the girl to another family to look after. Only that family then we're kind of like, oh, we don't care. We're just going to sell you for money. Yeah. It's possible. Yeah, I think that's a bluff. But your point on your connection to talking about Justice League there, Stuart, and also talking about Rain Johnson. A friend of mine made a post on social media saying Rain Johnson is the Zack Snyder of Star Wars. Which I saw that, and my response to that was like, well, now I'm excited to see Star Wars because I really like Zack Snyder as the director.
Me too.
But then, so we've got this. So we've had Star Wars 8, The Last Jedi, has recently been released, and largely the response on the public and critics seem to be to universally hate it.
Well, no, the critics love it. The critics love it.
Oh, the critics loved it?
Yeah.
The critics love it, the fans hate it.
Yeah.
That's funny. So then it's kind of like a
mirror.
If you then, so critics loved Star Wars, but the fans hated the new Star Wars. Justice League-wise, the critics hated it, but a lot of vocal audience people have been hating it as well. But you can also, if you look on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience rating is actually pretty high. So by all accounts, it suggests the audience likes it. But you've got two big franchises here that people are very close to, hold these characters very dear to their hearts, like the DC superheroes in the Justice League, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and you've got the Star Wars franchise. And these two movies being released pretty close to each other and have had a very negative response. What are your guys' thoughts on what's going on here?
It's difficult to please everybody. That's the main concern.
Yeah, you never go into it, I think.
Yeah, you could get 100 people in a room and go, right, what do you want out of this film? And you're pretty much going to get 100 different answers. That's the hardest part, I think. Like, if you were to take this on, it would be a no-win situation. But I don't know.
I do think, I think it's a lot of design by committee in high-level studio that's causing a lot of problems with this. Because obviously, Disney is now Star Wars' Lord and Master, and they're looking at this as a long-term franchise investment. So, whereas us as fans would say we want to see Luke, be kick-ass and have great adventures, and the Disney are looking to go, right, well, we get rid of Mark Hamill. We don't need to pay him anymore, and then we can just bring in some new characters.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Well, I feel like with like Star Wars,
need to sort themselves out as well.
To me, I didn't apart from the Luke thing, I didn't really mind a lot of the decisions that they did, but it was the poor writing and execution of the plots.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what got me.
ruined
Okay,
it.
I said this before. I said this just before we joined the call. Was the whole Finn and Rose subplot where they have to go and find this code breaker so they can sneak onto the Star Destroyer, and they end up bringing back a rogue code breaker, not the one they actually need, and he ends up being betrays them and shows all the First Order where the ships are that are escaping.
So they fail their mission, yeah.
And that plot line only happened because the Admiral Holdo didn't tell
Poe her plan. Yeah.
Her plan. And if she'd have said, no, our plan is to sneak off on these stealth corvettes and go to this planet, and then we're going to let the First Order think we've destroyed ourselves, and none of that would have happened. That plan would have succeeded, and the rebels would now be on Crait in their base, hidden, planning their next strike force. Oh, and Luke would be alive as well.
Yeah.
So,
it's all Finn's fault. I hate Finn. God damn it.
No, it's not Finn. It's Holdo's fault. It's Holdo's fault.
Holdo's fault. Yeah, sorry, it's Holdo's fault.
There is no reason for her to not tell them the plan, because as soon as Poe finds out, he's like, that could work. Because it's a really good plan. There is no reason to tell her.
It's just a really poor piece of writing, because every single plot point that happens from that point forward is all about what can we do to drive the story forward next. It's not about what should logically happen.
Yeah. Sorry, why are you so...
We've got this plan, it's going to work, we'll hide out in the base. So they could have cut that whole subplot out, cut the film by half an hour, tightened the narrative up, and brought a lot more into it.
Yeah.
But it just... it's looking back on it, it's just extraneous.
Because when you first watch it, you're not sure. Oh, is she a bad guy? You know, is she with the First Order? Is that why she's not telling him? But then you find out at the end that she talks to Leia. She goes, "Oh, he's a troublemaker, that Poe. I really like him. Yeah, me too."
Right. So it looks like there's a lot to. Still lots to talk about on Star Wars. It looks like this is something that's going to be topic of conversation for a while now. But hey,
Liam, when you get to watch it. We'll do another podcast with you involved, because you can have your sort of opinions on it.
Absolutely, yeah. As soon as I've seen it, we'll revisit this movie and talk about it some more. But hey, so this is the end of our first episode of the Legends of Podcasting. So if you like what you've heard, be sure to talk about it in the comments, share it around, tell your friends, and subscribe to us wherever you can find podcasts, on YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher, and we'll see you next time. Everyone say bye.
Bye.
See you later.
All right.